The Emperor has foreseen a new threat rising against him. The Podwans Podcast.
Welcome back to Pod One's podcast for our Book of Boba Fett finale rewatch. Again, for today's episode, it's just gonna be me and Ryan. Luke's obviously off in Arizona, so he cannot make it. So it's just gonna be us kind of just reliving the Book of Boba Fett finale. We did get a couple bit of news. Some that actually Ryan forgot about, which is hilarious because we were just talking about that off air. Ryan was like, "Oh yeah, I guess that got announced," and I was like, kind of a big deal in terms of Star Wars books.
When you said the name, I was thinking completely of something else, not what actually was announced. So it was just like I was like confused until I actually pulled it up. I was like, "Oh yeah, they announced a book sequel." Well, I guess they didn't announce it. We already knew it was coming. They just formally showed off the title and whatnot, or the cover art.
Right, and it was like we knew from the jump. I guess we'll just jump into it. Like that, Mask of Fear was going to be a trilogy of books, and it officially got revealed that we are getting Mask of Fear: Edge of the Abyss. Or sorry, Reign of the Empire: Edge of the Abyss. I forget that Reign of the Empire is technically the subtitle.
The series title, I think, is like the entire series is Reign of the Empire. Mask of Fear was the first one.
Right. And
correct. Yeah. And then Edge of the Abyss is, yeah.
I think it's very interesting that they chose to jump to Andor times. I thought they were gonna
a year before season 1 starts, which is there's a lot to cover, and we're immediately jumping, which wants me. I'm already wondering, when does the third book take place?
I'm assuming
because it's during the war itself.
That's probably what I'm thinking. Probably between Empire and Jedi would probably be the most logical place to put it.
Yeah,
because to me, I thought the way this trilogy was going, just kind of guessing off of Mask of Fear, is okay, book 1's gonna be Mon Mothma, book 2 is probably gonna be Bail Organa or Luthen Rael. I was like, that makes sense. And then I was trying to figure out book 3 probably be Leia, but I was like, when they announced that psych, the book's actually gonna be Mon again, and it's a year before Andor, I was like, that's a time jump and a half.
Yeah, the I forget his name, but one of the guys with Penguin Random House, he was answering questions on Twitter. And I think somebody assumed, just based on the cover, because it has Saul front and center with a bigger spotlight, I think people assumed that was maybe more of a Saul focus. And he wanted to bring up this no, it's still very much a split between what we saw in the first book. It's still very much a I forgot what he called it, but it's not Saul is not the sole focus or the main focus. It's still very much split between who we've seen, and it seems like we have other characters that we'll see the focus on.
Which it was that was kind of not my main disappointment with Mask of Fear, because I think Mask of Fear is still in my top 5 canon novels. I think it's impact is so good, but my main gripe was kind of obviously because it was so close to Andor. I was I wonder what the hell Luthen's during that era, and then. But now that we're a year before Andor, I'm we're finally. I think we're gonna finally get it. I think we're gonna get some Luthen POVs, because obviously if we're getting Saw Gerrera again, that means those two are heavily linked by the time of Andor season 1.
So in the article, they confirmed we will see Anto, Krieger, Luthen, Clea. I don't forget how you pronounce this, Nisus or Nisus. He's one of the propaganda guys in the beginning of season 2. I think he's just they're brainstorming or bringing up hey, we did that, so we can do it here, setting up propaganda for the galaxy to hate Gorman. Perrin, Leda, Mon, Bail, Saul, and even though it's not listed on the cover, we have a young Princess Leia. And I don't think it's confirmed in the article, but on Twitter, the guy from Penguin Random House did confirm Leia and Clea will interact with each other,
which is going to be crazy because the parallels between those two are kind of insane.
Yeah, and I think they're roughly the same age. I mean, well, maybe not. Well, no, I think Clea's older.
Clea's probably 2 to 3 years older, if I had to guess.
Yeah, at least a few years older. I mean, at this point, Leia's what, 14, 13?
Well, it's close to. I'm assuming it's after Princess of Alderaan and probably after her Rebels appearance.
Yeah. It's going to be kind of.
No, it would be before, because if we're a year before Andor season 1, she would be 14.
Is she 19 or 20 in A New Hope? because it's 19
She's 19
BBY.
because Luke's 19 because
So
they're both twins.
yeah, so 13, 14 years old.
So yeah, it's gonna be pre Princess of Alderaan, Leia,
Mhm.
pre her
And
figuring out
she has
that
no
Bail
idea.
Organa's in the rebellion.
Yeah, she has no idea their connection to any kind of rebellion. So that'll be interesting. Assuming we got that right.
Yeah, because this is pre Rebel season 1. Because I was like trying to do the timeline math in my head. Because I'm like Andor season 1 kind of runs concurrently with Rebel season 1.
Yeah. So this may be like literally right before coincide. When did how old? It's been so long. I love Princess Leia, Princess of Alderaan, but I forgot when it takes place or how old she was because
She was
it's kind of
6.
like
I think she was 16 because funny enough, this is why I love organizing my shelves by timeline order. I have it right after, I have it after Rebel season 2 because obviously I have the physical Blu-ray, so I couldn't just stick it in the middle of the case. So I have it after season 2. So yeah, Andor season 1 because I have an order of because Andor technically starts before Rebels, and then Andor season 1, Rebels season 1, Rebels season 2, Leia Princess of Alderaan. It's sort of how I have it in that order.
yeah. So Wikipedia says 3 BBY. So yeah, that lines up. So she has no idea, or at least not supposed to know. But Rebecca Roanhorse, she did Resistance Reborn, correct?
I believe so.
I was gonna say I see the cover of that book right there.
Yes, it
With
is Record Born Horse, which is hilarious. Yeah.
okay, so she's somebody that we know that she's done her like culmination. That's like her culmination book of like tying a lot of other books and other Star Wars media together. So I think she's definitely familiar with uh expanded universe materials. So like so I would assume that she would definitely respect Leia, Princess of Alderaan. And that at this point Leia does not know what is going on with her family.
Plus, also like I guess I just have like this kind of blind faith in the story group. I feel like the story group would remember something of that significance. Like if it was something tiny, I think they would kind of forget about it and shove it under the rug. But if it's something as big as Leia discovering the rebellion, and then obviously because Princess of Alderaan has tie-ins to Crate and obviously that kind of stuff. So it's like I think I hate the like tier list order of like canon books of like importance,
Right.
but I feel like Princess of Alderaan's pretty high on.
I would think so. I mean, even though it was technically a young adult novel, um, it's still a really good novel. Don't let the young adult uh,
Oh,
uh genre or whatever
like if people made the mistake with Star Wars canon books are missing out on some
mhm,
amazing books. Like I mean, Lost Stars is like the obvious example of like if you are just going, oh, it's a young YA, what are you doing? Because I obviously both are Claudia Gray written books. I always kind of agree with her argument that Star Wars has always been YA coded. Because even like George
yeah,
Lucas was like, it's a story for 12-year-olds. So it's like
mhm,
YA is kind of perfectly fitting within that subgenre. And also people forget, because I used to have these conversations at my previous workplace of like, YA doesn't mean level of content. YA means grade reading level.
yeah.
Like you can have graphic and horrific content in YA novels and get away with it.
And it may end up being more relatable to young adults. I mean, because I mean, Leia, I think Princess of Alderaan is the perfect one where like Leia's a teenager. Lost Stars was kind of like that for a good bit, where like they were teenagers. It's been so long since I read it. I know they end up growing up, and one's in the Empire, the other's in the Rebellion. But even then, like YA romance, if the main characters are teenagers, don't let that discourage you. But like, I'm curious on Leia's interaction with Clea because Clea knows exactly what's going on, and she probably knows at this point Belle's involvement.
Oh no, she for sure knows because Mon Mothma and Clea and Luthen are so
Mhm.
tight by the point of the beginning of Andor. I mean, it's kind of implied that they were tight since Revenge of the Sith. Obviously, Luthen doesn't get mentioned outright in Mask of Fear, but that's kind of the underlying context in Andor season 1.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming they connected like shortly after Mask of Fear, which is still 19 BBY.
I'm actually curious because I mean, obviously from Princess of Alderaan, do we like is do you think we get like a crate connection?
Probably not, but I would not be surprised if they somehow
I don't
made it
think it,
work.
Yeah, I don't think it's established on when Crate was actually like set as a rebel cell base. So I'm curious on if like just with the timing, because
Well,
by the point of that novel, we know Crate has kind of been well established at least with whatever
right.
cell is there.
And I kind of like read in like the Crate references in Princess of Alderaan because obviously that was a leading up to Last Jedi type of novel. It was kind of like the
It was
journey to
literally
Last
part of that. It
Jedi.
was that journey. Yeah, I was in that journey.
So like
But
I read into it a little bit, but I don't read into it too much. But I would not be surprised if like kind of like how they use Saw Gerrera and like tied planets to Saw from like Bad Batch, kind of. And like the same way they use Jeddah in the opening chapters of Mask of Fear. I would not be surprised if Edge of the Abyss kind of starts circling around some planets and stuff. Like
mm,
I feel like if I had to bet on anything, I feel like we're more likely to get Andor season 1 deep cuts than Crate deep cuts.
some setups there. Yeah, maybe like maybe it'd be too soon to establish like the early steps of Oldani. I'm trying to think of other stuff that might. Hmm. I mean, it's just so wild because it's the second book in this trilogy, and we fast forward what 17? No,
Yeah,
not 17, but like 13 years, 14 years,
14 years roughly.
which is wild. And I think we've known this for a while. I think they've mentioned it a while back, but it's like, damn, there's so much to cover in between those first two books. At least we think. So I
Right.
mean, I just yeah.
And I don't feel envy for Rebecca Warrenhouse because like I feel like having to follow up Mask of Fear is going to be such a daunting
Mhm.
task. That
Yeah,
like
it is a big risk to have different authors write. I know it's not necessarily an uncommon thing, but it's like that is kind of an interesting, I guess, just to get different perspectives. It is very interesting that they chose different authors and
yeah,
doing so with so much time in between releases because this comes out sometime in the fall, I believe, but the first one came out last spring, like a year ago at this point.
right. And like I remember obviously because I had to read it for Podwans. Like I remember not just because of the time constraint, but like I remember pretty much reading it in the span of like 3 days and like
Mm.
just being so invested into like every single piece of dialogue in that book. Like it's like I said, I honestly think it's top 5 canon books, like easily. I think
Oh yeah.
it's up there. And like just like how like people talk about like how Andor is like very relevant. I feel like Mask of Fear is very relevant in terms of like books like
Mhm.
impact and like on the current like
This
landscape.
is this is literally Andor in book form. If you're looking for canon Star Wars books that like rival uh Andor, I mean this probably Alphabet Squadron. But like this especially is like if you want and especially with how it links so close to it and now it involves even more characters from Andor, it's like this is this is your shit right here.
Right. And I'm so glad Lucasfilm did this initiative instead of just kind of letting Andor be Andor.
Hmm.
And like the way that like because like obviously I'm curious to see how they're going to build on the whole Mon Mothma Bail Organa relationship because like that was probably the thing that was the most shocking part of that book
Yeah, it was
was
so
Mon Mothma and Bail
fractured.
Organa getting into like
Mhm.
fractured like relationship and them kind of getting into verbal disagreements. And it's like
How does
again,
that change between now and where we see them? I guess in season 2 of Andor when they're like, or Belle's basically like give them hell, like they're all buddy buddy at this point. It's just yeah, I'm interested to see if that. I would assume it's probably you probably start to see. Well, it's been 13 years. You would hope they gotten close at this point.
right, for sure. And then kind of transitioning a little bit into the Empire magazine stuff.
Hmm.
We finally got like a little bit more than just the 2 covers. We finally got obviously we already saw this, but like there was obviously the added text on top of the cover. So
Yeah.
like again, obviously the across seasons brainstorming, television across the way, their galaxy. Now as the Mandalorian Grogu hits the big screen, we find out Star Wars best buddies are leveling up. And obviously we already saw this picture, but obviously they're adding all the text on top of it.
Mhm.
And then I feel like the other one that was kind of big of this announcement was we already knew that Ludwig Göransson was coming back to do the score for Mando and Grogu, but we finally actually get to see him composing.
Yeah. So there's a segment in the article Just quoting it, it says in season one, he's this it comes from directly up from Ludwig. In season one, he's obviously not as much of a presence as he is in the film. Now he's got a ton more screen time. He's a lot more present. He's not a little kid anymore. He's more grown up. He's more independent. And there is a place to take him, which is one of my favorite parts of the film, where you really get to spend some time with him and get to know him.
Which, again, which is kind of funny enough that we're talking about Book of Boba Fett, because I feel like that was kind of like a necessary character development. I felt like for Grogu that he needs to kind of just go through for the longest time of like, again, obviously we know that like Yoda species doesn't really age well, but it's kind of like, I feel like as an audience, we're kind of ready for Grogu to kind of mature beyond like the little like adolescent toddler phase. Like, I think it's like, I kind of hope that Mando and Grogu pushes like Grogu to kind of being like protagonist. Like if Din's like protagonist A, I want like Grogu to be protagonist B. Like he's in the fucking title. Like,
Which it seems like, based off of some of the stuff from the trailer and now from that quote, it's, you know, there's a part, at least implied in the trailer, where they're separated. Where
right,
Din is, you know, helmet off, dealing with the snake, and you know, Grogu's probably on his own adventure in the swamp somewhere where he sees that creature, and he's like, "Are you afraid? You should be." And Din is also saying, he's like, you know, I'm not always going to be there to protect him. So it seems like this is opportunity to for Grogu to kind of take everything that he's learned and experienced and be like, okay, I'm going to do this on my own. I don't need anybody with me. I may be small. I may still technically be a kid, but I can do this.
right. And I feel like, because like originally, like, obviously when we were first talking about the trailer, we were all like, obviously in typical like YouTube fashion, we were like, oh my god, who's gonna show up? Like, oh my god, like where are the significance of the huts and like the Imperial remnants? Like, what's the significance of like Ahsoka season 2 and Thrawn and all that? But I feel like the more of it I kind of think about the trailer in retrospect, I kind of hope Grogu is just the one that just saves Din by himself.
That would be pretty cool. I think that would do the one thing that people have been annoyed with, at least with season three of Mando, as well as one of their fears with the movie. And I think that will actually bring in character growth and character development for Grogu specifically, but also character development for Din, because now he realizes he doesn't necessarily, you know, Grogu doesn't need Din to save him or protect him. He can do like Din can feel comfortable with Grogu being on his own in situations, and he can actually do what he needs to do.
Right. And I feel like hell, like I feel like we not trying to segue into like Book of Boba Fett, but like I feel like we kind of see it in this episode.
Yeah, that's kind of like the early stuff to that. Before we, I mean, because so there is more from that article. If we want to talk about it, I sent you a link if you want to post some of those other pictures.
Right. Okay.
Um,
Ooh.
so
Oh, did you put it in the Video Ninja chat?
yeah, Video Ninja,
Okay.
yeah, and you can just click on the pictures and stuff on the subreddit, and you can just yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me share my screen. Sorry, this is like all over the place because Windows. There you go. So
So
yeah.
I was gonna say with that picture, I don't know if you saw my TikTok that I posted earlier. That is one of the Imperial warlords from the Shadow Council in Mando season 3.
Oh yeah, because we already knew about that. Like he was gonna be.
Yeah, we knew he was in it. We didn't know how, and we already saw the other warlord in the snow planet that I refuse to call Hoth until they officially say it's Hoth. Um, but so it looks like he is in the arena watching a fight, presumably probably watching Din and Rada fighting, and obviously he has Grogu in a cage. And I think this seems to imply the Empire are probably working with the Hutts or some sort of criminal organization, and that's, you know, that kind of brings them into having a much bigger involvement in the movie than a lot of people probably thought.
Well, like we know that Filoni loves to call back to Return of the Jedi, specifically like
Mm.
the Starlight Pit scene. Like we already kind of had that with Ahsoka and like the
Oh,
slave
yeah.
arc, and then we had like Anakin and Siege of Mandalore. I'm kind of wondering if we're getting that with Grogu.
There's definitely some Return of the Jedi inspirations there, especially with like the Hutts and presumably the snake. I forgot the actual lizard snake. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Lizard snake being like their that those Hutts, Rancor and all that. There's definitely some similarities there. But I thought this was interesting because I think a lot of people thought that after that cold open or whatever you want to call it, with on the snow planet with the Empire there, that we probably weren't going to get any more Empire throughout the movie, and the rest of the movie was going to be like side adventure. No plot progression, no character development. It's just going to be an adventure that involves the Huts, no Empire, no nothing. And it seems like there's definitely some stuff there. They do say in the article, where was it? Um, the peace in this era is fragile. Eventually, the Force Order rises. Narratively, this marks a new start for Din and Grogu, and for audiences who should be able to enjoy The Mandalorian and Grogu without having to do homework first. The more lore-centric elements of the New Republic era are for season 2 of Ahsoka to unpick. Um, so I think if you're looking for something that's lore-heavy, you're probably not going to get it here, which I think is probably a good thing, at least for the first time you're bringing this era onto the big screen.
Right. It's like we
Uh,
don't want the MCUification of Star Wars.
but it's
And
like it seems like um but it seems like they kind of want this to be, and I've said this before, this seems like uh I can't think of the phrase, and I'll always say it, a soft reboot of sorts, of like, you don't need to know anything other than, hey, here's these two people, essentially lone wolf and cub, going on adventures.
right, and I've always said, like, I've said this on Pod Ones a lot. I've said it in, like, Dyad's chat. I've said it on like people's comment section. Like, to me, Mando and Grogu is kind of soft launching like Filoni's movie, where it's like, if like theatrical moviegoers go watch Mando and Grogu, they can easily jump into Filoni's untitled movie when that comes out as like the finale to the Mandoverse. So I feel like this is just kind of laying the groundwork to where ultimately that's going to end up. Like, I feel like obviously I think we're probably get a season 4 of Mando, but I just feel like you can jump from this to Filoni's movie and probably not skip a beat,
Yeah.
and probably still
So,
keep
I mean,
track of
it is
everything.
interesting you bring up season 4, because I don't think Favreau or Filoni bring it up in the interview, but the writer does. He says after The Mandalorian season 3, series creator Jon Favreau wrote an entire season 4. He still has the scripts, which we've known about for a couple of months now. It's interesting that people keep bringing up that he still has the scripts, and I'm wondering if that was like Favreau or Disney or Lucasfilm being like, "Hey, it's important that you bring this up. Like, we still have season 4." Which I'm like,
Right.
does that mean they want to still do season 4, or is it just like, hey, I don't like.
I also would wonder how like a season 4 would go after Mando and Grogu, because I'm assuming the first couple episodes of season 4 got converted into this movie. How would season 4 function outside of this?
So I mean, the way they say it in the article, they bring up, in 2023, you have their actors and writer strikes, and after that, priority shifted, says Favreau. Now, director and he said, yeah, season 4 was shelved. They never bring up that, they redid anything for season, like they didn't condense things or combine things or rewrote stuff from season 4 to make this movie, which I thought was interesting. Um, so I'm wondering, like, well, maybe some stuff may have to change in season 4 for it to make sense with the movie, but like, how much of that stuff is important for them to tell us? Like, I wonder if they want to actually still do a season 4, or if they do. I think there was one rumor at one point saying that, depending on how well this movie does, they want to do a trilogy of movies.
Which I'm not opposed to a trilogy of movies, because it's like, if we want to let Favreau do movie 1,
Mm-hmm.
and then we maybe
Bryce
like do
Dallas
like Bryce
Howard.
Dallas Howard do movie 2, and then we let Filoni finish it, that would be kind of
Yeah.
a perfect trilogy. And like, I get people are against like the trilogy of occasions of Star Wars movies, of like, why can't we just let this be 2 anthology movies? Like, I understand that argument, but I feel like if they got something interesting to tell after Mando and Grogu, like, let's not just straight up jump into the finale.
Yeah.
Because it's like, again, going off of the studio showcase in 23, the way that they were describing Filoni's movie, it sounds like that's going to be the
It's a
finale
culmination
of
both.
everything, of the Mandoverse. And it's,
You-
and they've even like said directly that's going to lead directly into Force Awakens. Like, you can watch that and go straight into Force Awakens and feel like you're not going to miss anything.
Could you imagine getting Bryce Dallas Howard to do like a Bo-Katan movie or something that
Oh
links
my
up?
God, that would be so good.
That's gotta be on the list. And
That would be honestly the best way to do it.
Mhm.
What if
They-
you
that's
do?
the-
What if
you
we do a
bring in these other
trilogy of
side
like
characters.
anthology of like different characters? So like Mando and
Yeah.
Grogu's movie 1, Bo-Katan's movie 2,
Maybe do
maybe-
Boba Fett,
maybe
or
Boba Fett.
maybe or Ahsoka in
Yeah.
in movie 3, and then Heir to the Empire's movie 4. It's not necessarily a trilogy. it is kind of the MCUification of Star Wars, but at the same time, it's like if you want people to be interested, it's like, oh yeah,
Not opposed. Because
I'm not opposed to that idea if that's how they do it. If that's like if they try to figure out ways to introduce these characters to general audiences, that then encourages them to go find out what these characters are from prior. Like I'd be okay with that. It may take them a while. I don't know if that's what they want to do, but
right, and then jumping into the second trilogy because I see that it has this. Obviously, I'm assuming that's pulled directly from the magazine.
yeah, these are supposed to be straight from the magazine. There are some other quotes. Let's see. Oh, they talk about like after so many streaming shows, is Star Wars still a cinematic event? How do you unite a multi-generational fan base for a saga spanning almost 50 years? If you don't go big, audiences might stay home. For Favreau, that brought significant production changes. Most vitally, more time. The series used volume LED walls extensively for reactive in-camera backgrounds, cutting costs and accelerating production. 3 seasons of Mando plus the Book of Boba Fett spinoff, effectively season 2.5, were turned around on a yearly basis. But Mando and Grogu production brought massive practical sets. Quote, whenever I'm allowed, I'll be releasing a video, teases Pascal, who broke the rules and filmed the craziest one on his phone. More Phil Tippett's studio stop motion, puppets galore, and expensive CG characters all designed for IMAX.
Right, and like, kind of when this movie got announced, like you can go back to that episode. I still kind of stand on what my initial feelings were. I feel like this is kind of Disney going to Lucasfilm going, hey, we haven't really been doing well movie wise in terms of Marvel, in terms of like Pixar, in terms of like Disney. We need something to like re-aggregate Star Wars. Why not just do The Mandalorian? And I feel like that's how this got made. And it's like, again, it's like I'm still like my expectations for this movie is not anything crazy. Like I feel like it's kind of safe. It's like I'm kind of just going into it like expecting Solo, when I love Solo as a movie, so it's not like a bad thing. It's just like I just have my expectations kind of in check with this movie. Like I don't expect anything too crazy, and like I just kind of want this to be a fun anthology movie that just pushes Din and Grogu further.
Right.
Because like I know like what you said, like that quote's exactly true. Like I think there's gonna be a lot of Star Wars fans. Hell, there's a lot of mutuals of ours that are kind of pushing this narrative of like, where are they hiding? Oh my god, this is gonna be a big event. Like
and they probably are hiding something.
Right. And like I don't put it past them to hide something, but it's like I kind of miss the idea that like Star Wars movies can be small. Like I think we're so used to the Skywalker saga and even Rogue One. Like I feel like where these movies have to be these huge, massive, climactic events, when reality, like I just kind of want more character studies. And I know that's like what TV's really for, but it's like, why can't we do that on the theatrical screen and like make that work? I think Solo is kind of the perfect example of that.
Well, and I think the thing that they're hiding is that this is a bigger story than they're letting on. Like I think something like in that halfway point in that third act is going to connect it to everything else. I know the quote says it's not lore heavy. Everything New Republic related is going to be in Ahsoka season 2.
However, it could be
but there could be some sort of tease. There could
be
some sort of tease that sets up all that stuff in Ahsoka season 2. It's like I don't think you'll see Thrawn, but you might see what the rest of the Imperial Remnant have cooking. You might see, because I still think they're based off a trailer. I think there's somebody in the Remnant that attacks the Delphi base, and that's how I think the Empire formally announces that, hey, we're not just gonna be hanging out in the Outer Rim anymore. We're gonna be trouble for you. And
right.
This is us saying that.
Right, and like you were talking about it earlier with like, oh, like we are speculating that like the opening of the movie is the Hoth sequence with the ATs and Din in the hallway scene, but like I feel like because you were like, oh, I don't think, because before this still came out, you're like, I don't think the Empire remnants and the Hutts are related, and I'm like, I kind of always thought they were going to go hand in hand, because like I was saying, I was using kind of Cobb Vanth's logic in Mando season 2 episode 1 of like, I think the Empire realizes that there's a power vacuum in the criminal underworld, and the only way to like get back to power and kind of rival the New Republic at this stage, even though they don't have soldiers, because we're in the Mon Mothma of like peace act era of like the New Republic is to once again control the criminal underworld. If you control the criminal underworld, you can control like
Mhm.
the economy and like fund your own
Well,
like
like
battalion
funny
to go
enough,
attack
like
them.
we made the joke that this is like a live action remake sequel to the Clone Wars movie. That was the premise of the Clone Wars movie of like like trying to gain control of Hut space to gain control of the hyperspace lanes. That's why, that's why the Republic came in to help rescue Rada. That's why the Separatists stole Rada because they all wanted to control the space to help in the war. And so it's like it is kind of funny that that's another potentially retelling of like, hey, here comes the Empire. We want control of this space. What do you want for it?
Right. And I feel like because again, you're like, I don't. You said like you don't think Thrawn's gonna make an appearance. I think he's gonna get heavily mentioned, and I think like
I think
I
there's
think
got to
it's
be
gonna
a
be
mention.
alluded to that he's kind of pulling the strings this entire
Like
time
if
in
I
the
don't see
movie.
Like Sigourney Weaver's character say the word Thrawn, I'm going to be disappointed.
I feel like I know like we keep talking like we don't want this to be the MCUification of Star Wars, but I can honestly see this movie ending with Thrawn.
I'm fine with this era being the MCU of Star Wars because of the different shows and how they could do other movies in between now and Heir to the Empire if that ever does get actually made. I'm fine with that. This is I think it's okay to consider this era of Star Wars, including the other stuff that isn't necessarily directly connected to this era. So all the other shows, like an experimental era of Star Wars, and this is just the part of the experiment that has worked out for the most part.
Well, like
I'm fine with them doing it. Just keep doing it. Like, yeah, I like just keep going until you're ready to finish it.
right, and it's like not to like piggyback off of what Pep was saying on Dyad when the trailer got released, but he's been kind of saying this, and I kind of was initially hesitant to what he was saying, but like thinking about it more, he was making the argument of, hey, the Mandalorian and the kind of the Mandoverse as a whole is what Clone Wars was to the prequels, and I was like, well, obviously, duh. But he was like, no, like you got to think about it more than just this is just connective tissue between episodes 2 and 3. Obviously, in this case, it's 6 and 7, but it's like he's like this is an entire era
Yeah.
of like stories. Like he's like Clone Wars, the whole purpose wasn't just to like explain why Anakin goes to the dark side. Like, sure, that's an element of the Clone Wars, but like he was like it's like the Clone Wars. Like there are like Clone Wars fans that are just the fans of that era. He's like the same way there are people that are fan of the Mandalorian era, and it's like like what we're saying so far is like kind of backing that up of like I don't understand like this kind of rush to get to the end of
Mhm.
this era. I think there's a lot more stories to tell within this era. Like hell, I'm a big proponent of let's do a Book of Boba Fett season 2. Let's get another season of Skeleton Crew. Ahsoka kind of seems like they're kind of setting up the finale of sorts, but I wouldn't be surprised if they could maybe squeeze one more season out of it potentially.
I forgot if that's anything that's been said about a season 3. Obviously, we probably won't know officially until after. Um, there was, I want to say there was some like the trades or somebody reported on something on some other like another group of people, like 2 or 3 people working on something else in this era recently, like within the last year or so. I don't know.
I mean, I'm a big proponent of like fuck it, like you guys have been pushing Luke so hard in Mando season 2 and Book of Boba Fett, and you pushed kind of like a little bit. Obviously, it was I think it was tastefully done with Ahsoka with like Leia, but it's like you already have Alden Ehrenreich. You potentially already have Luke. Just fucking just do a Luke show. I swear to
Do
God, like just
or
do a
I mean,
show.
or I was gonna say a Luke show or just a main trio show in this era that is like going to somehow directly connect to the final movie.
Dude, what if it's a movie? What if it's an anthology movie with the main trio going on like one last adventure before the sequels?
Presumably, that's probably heir to the Empire, or at least in some way.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that's gonna be like a subplot of it, but like we could like I feel like I feel
So
like that movie's
I've
gonna
been
already have a lot
reading.
going on
Yeah,
already. I feel like that would kind of take away some of the impact of
yeah,
like Ahsoka's side of the story and Ezra and obviously Bale and Skull and that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
like,
So last
yeah,
week I mentioned I finished up Heir to the Empire, the audio novel. I am in the middle of Dark Force Rising right now, so it is nice to see the trio in this era, obviously in an alternate universe at this point. So it always so as like get to parts that involve either Luke, Han, Leia, or Lando, or whoever. I'm thinking like, what are they doing right now in canon? Like obviously, I mean, Luke is on Ossus. At least we think. Leia's in the Senate. Don't know what Han's doing. Don't know what Lando's doing. And I'm like, I mean, I know there were the New Republic comments that took place right after the Battle of
Right.
Jakku that they
We have
ended really prematurely.
right because we have this trilogy of comics
Yeah,
that
we
leads
have
into the
that,
Battle of
and then like
Jakku.
there was like the relaunch of the mainline Star Wars comic that only lasted like 10 or 11 issues, and they ended it for whatever reason. But apparently, it wasn't being received well, anyways. But Marvel's doing something weird with their comics right now across the board,
And,
from what I've been hearing.
and again, I would not be opposed if Lucasfilm kind of came in and said, "Hey, we kind of want to do something in live action with these characters,
Maybe
like
they
drop
did.
it."
Maybe it's like, hey, we're getting way too close. I mean, it was still a few years, but it's like, hey,
Well,
we don't want to have so much previous baggage.
that is actually kind of backed up by Lucasfilm authors because Claudia Gray has talked about at length that she wants to write Lost Stars 2, but Lucasfilm Story Group won't let her because it's in the Mando era. Because
Oh, that's
that's
when
where
she
she
would
wants
wanna
to set
write
the
it?
story. That's where she wants to
Ooh.
set it.
Well, and I know that was why, because there was supposed to be a Mandalorian book several years ago, and they scrapped that really early on.
Yeah, because they won't let authors
They don't
touch this era until it's finished. It's
Yeah.
essentially kind of the impression that's been kind of
Which
talked
I
about.
understand, because then you don't wanna like, even it I'd imagine the logistics. I couldn't imagine the logistics and planning that went towards the High Republic. But imagine that on a much bigger level when you're dealing with film writers who are on a very even probably bigger tight schedule, because they're not just all going to work on Star Wars, they're going to be working on other projects as well at the same time. So it's like I couldn't imagine dealing with that. So I understand that, even if that means we may have to wait a long time for a new Claudia Gray novel. But as I was saying, I was like, yeah, I got to think about what are these characters doing? What are these main trio of characters doing in canon at this time? And we really don't know.
Right, like
I think, I mean, a movie I think would do well. I think a show would probably do really well,
I mean, like I
even
know
though
everyone's
people
pushing
are
for
probably
like animated shows, but like my argument against that kind of was like I was team like let's just do an animated show that's very safe. You can get voice alikes and we can bring in Ashley Eckstein and like get kind of people's comfort food going with Clone Wars,
Mhm.
even though I'm really tired of like that kind of constification of Star Wars animation. The reason why I kind of changed my stance, funny enough, was because of Andor season 2. Like the way that people responded to the Bail Organa
Mhm.
recasting. Like at first you had the initial like, oh my god, this isn't Jimmy Smits, what the fuck kind of outrage. But like quickly that outrage kind of settled the
I mean,
following episode.
recasts are always a tricky thing. I think a lot more trickier than people let on social media. It's like, well, you cast Ewan McGregor to play Obi-Wan. It's like, well, yeah, that was a younger version of the character. Even if Alec Guinness was still alive, he wouldn't play him. And I also think there's like some brain trickery there that makes it work. It's like, sure, you can go look at what Alec Guinness looked like at 20 years old, but technically in universe, you didn't, prior to a Phantom Menace, you didn't know what Obi-Wan looked like at 20 years old.
Right.
So it made a lot more sense in the brain. However, we know what Luke, Leia, and Han look like at this point in time, at this age. So so there's like a suspension of disbelief that is probably not there for some people that will make a recasting hard. That's my logic of like
Yeah.
why I think it's why probably a lot of people won't be up for a recasting, or it may take them time. I know people I know like Kathleen Kennedy specifically has quoted the reason why not doing recast because of Solo, and people kind of read that as because of Alden specifically. Again, I think it's kind of the case of like we kind of knew what Han looked like, even though there's like a 10-year difference. I mean, there wasn't going to be much of a difference, and I think it's just recasts are hard. Is basically what I'm trying to say. It's hard
Right.
to convince people that recasts are effective, especially when you know what a character is supposed to look like, and the even though we've had recasts before, but under different circumstances.
Right. And like my argument for it obviously is I feel like if you do it in a movie, like because like obviously we have the opening sequence to Indiana Jones 5 with like young Harrison Ford, and that's
Mhm.
fine because it's like a 10-minute sequence. And then obviously we have Mando season 2 and Book of Boba Fett, but it's like I can't imagine that. I mean, obviously Leia and Tarkin in Rogue One, but I couldn't imagine that like being an entire subplot in Filoni's movie with the original trilogy. Like, that would take me out of the movie entirely.
Yeah.
I would
That's
rather have a
I'm
recasted actors and just let them, because like Mark Hamill's even said it like publicly of like, I'm publicly fine with
Yeah.
it. Like, go do it. Like, and I feel like it'd be more of a disservice not to recast them and kind of let these characters
it really I
have
mean,
this
you
moment.
again, you already have Han, you already have Lando. Luke is up in the air. People's fan casting for Leia is Billy Lord. I don't know if I'm necessarily for that. I know
I'm
Billy
against it because Billy
is
Lord's
I know Billy is
already.
Carrie's daughter, but like I don't think she looks like Carrie. But like, and plus she's already played another character prominently, not like in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. So like, I'm not necessarily into that casting as much. If it happens, then I'll deal with it. But that's probably not who I would cast. Here's the thing. So like, I think you start off with like a 6 episode limited series on Disney Plus as a way to like get at least the hardcore fans
I would
convinced.
say you soft launch it in Mando and Grogu. That's
I
how
mean,
I would do
that
it.
would be interesting. That could be a very interesting surprise.
And then you announce, hey, we're doing a Luke movie, or hey, we're doing a Luke TV show.
Yeah.
And then you get people
do a
comfortable with
main
that.
trio limited series show, and then that kind of gets people into it. No deep fakes, none of that. Just brand new actors or already established actors that we know that can fit the character. You do a 6 episode limited series as like a setup. It could literally be trying to do some sort of like equivalent to what's going on in the Empire trilogy and Legends that involves those characters, and then you somehow get them involved in Filoni's movie.
And like, I don't want to like retell stories to like that we already told in like canon, but like, because like we talked like about this, and I've kind of like theorized like how I would do like a Luke story was like I would have the Knights of Ren kind of in there, and you can bring in Loras and Tekka, and like you can start elementing stuff from Force Awakens into this storyline and get people comfortable with the idea of like the way that like it's like it's shitty for like people that don't like Luke's character in the sequel trilogy, even though like I'm a firm defender of it. Like you have to start kind of sewing those in, and I think Book of Boba Fett did a really good job of sewing those elements in. And I think you have to kind of start pushing Luke into that kind of direction of like his only memory of the Jedi Order is historical textbooks, so he's just kind of falling into the same traps that Yoda and Obi-Wan made in the prequel. So it's like I wouldn't mind if we started doing Luke stories that kind of start heavily tying in to elements in that era with like the Knights of Ren and that kind of stuff. And like them going after like old kind of like Imperial elements, like kind of like a la Rise of Kylo Ren and Shadows of the Sith.
Mhm.
But I feel like it's kind of time to hit like main event time in terms of
Yeah.
our topic.
I watched this before we started filming.
Same.
I was doing other stuff as I was watching, because I had no idea if we would have people for trivia. So I was like trying to perfect that. So I was doing other stuff as I was watching. But
Right, but I feel like in terms of the finales, like I feel like this is probably the weakest finale, and that's not a bad thing.
it's one of the and by review scores. I mean, if you remember when we talked about it during the first or maybe second episode, it is one of the weaker episodes of review wise out of the entire season. Which, looking back, I mean, it's kind of weird. I can understand. I don't know if it was a common complaint. I think one of the things I really noticed is that like entire fight that spans a majority of the episode was done in that one area of town outside the blown up club. They
Yeah.
don't really do a lot of like expanding the area, which I think may fit with people's kind of complaints of the show being cheap or looking cheap. Even though there are times I don't think the show looks cheap at all, but like I can understand at least in this context. It's like, yeah, I get it.
Right. I think there are
They
certain
really
shots
don't.
you could tell they
There's no,
heavily
yeah.
relied on the volume.
Mhm.
Like the shot of like the Gamorrean guards getting pushed off the cliff was the one that kind of stood out to me. I was like, oh yeah, they definitely used the volume like crazy in that shot.
A lot of using the same location.
Right, and I
Which
also
it was COVID. It was like it was 2020. It was like them trying to figure out how to do this in a during a pandemic. So like I can understand them wanting to like not have to do as much because you can't, so you have to be creative. So I understand.
feel like a lot of it kind of boils down to like Robert Rodriguez's style of filming. Like
Yeah.
I think a lot of his productions look cheap, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it's Robert Rodriguez's style of
Yeah.
like
It's
artificial
very
lighting.
interesting, like of how different at times, your close up shots in the city can look, and then like either before or after that shot, you just have this wide shot of like the entire city and it looks incredible. And so it's like a very interesting contrast of like, of like maybe how a second unit director may have filmed it or how, visual effects director did compared to what Rodriguez did while he was doing his thing. It's just like it's a very interesting contrast because at times it's like it doesn't look cheap, the other times it does. So it's very interesting to think about like who did what.
Right, and it's like again, kind of like going into gripes that I've had with this is kind of just show overall, and they kind of relates to the finale. Some of it doesn't, where it's like I said it back on episode 3. I still feel like we should have had an extra episode of the show that's like really dived into Cad Bane's and Boba's
Mm.
relationship, because like I think that's one of my biggest gripes of the show is a big plot point relies on not an arc from the Clone Wars, but a deleted
I was
arc
gonna say
from the Clone
there is
Wars.
an alternate universe where we get that scene in live action and this show is like some sort of flashback.
And I think that's honestly what they should have done.
Yeah.
And it's
Like,
like
you established that earlier and then you're like, "Oh, oh, oh, oh."
because it's like I started noticing that like especially during Boba and Cad Bane standoff, like you can kind of notice Tamora Morrison's kind of acting a little bit more like Daniel Logan,
Well,
where
and
you
there's
can
like
see
and
his like
as they're
kid side come
talking,
out.
there's some references. They're like alluding to previous times that they've met, including there's like one scene where like Boba says like, "Well, this time I have armor," which I assume, even though he has on the helmet in in that Clone Wars deleted scene, I'm assuming it's meant to be some sort of callback to then. Maybe I don't. There's some sort of like there's some stuff that they're alluding to the past, and Dave has said this in the past before. Is like even if stuff doesn't make even if there's not like a final cut of something, like it hasn't been officially revealed, but it's like there are deleted scenes, or if like we have ideas for it and we just didn't get to make it, they're still canon. So when we make other stories involving these characters and it makes sense to bring up stuff that hasn't been publicly seen on screen, we're still going to treat that as if they have been on screen. We're still going to reference that.
Right.
We're still going to connect to that.
And I respect Dave for doing that. I just feel like from a story standpoint, you lose the impact because of it. Like I feel like they should have just because like if I remember correctly, those like deleted animatics are like what 3 scenes. You have
They're
the
not
scene with
much.
Cad
Yeah.
Bane talking to Boba as a kid. You can honestly just bring back Daniel Logan. You don't have to do this weird de-aging thing. You could just have Daniel Logan be how old he is now. Like he doesn't look that much
You could have
younger
I
than
like I was
teenage
when I was
Boba.
watching this, I was like, you could have done the flashback and have Daniel Logan.
Yeah.
At the very least, you could have somebody of similar stature as him, and he could just be the voice. And that
Right.
could signify, oh,
Kind of
this
like
is
how
a
they
younger
did
Boba Fett.
Kid Din
Mhm.
in season 1.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, I was
like
thinking about that while that was going on. Yeah.
they've done young Mandalorians and then they just kind of put a voice actor on him.
Mhm.
And I feel like that was such a missed opportunity in this season because it's like, again, I feel like I said, I feel like there was a missing episode in the show that could have really dived into Boba's trauma. Because like when I said it earlier in episode 4 when they did like ended the back to flashbacks. I feel like I was like, I think they just ended them too early. Like I feel like
Mm.
we could have had more, not even just Boba and Cad Bane. I feel like we could have got more with Cobb Vanth and like how Boba figured out that Cobb Vanth got the armor, how Boba tracked in to Tython, like all of that could have been
There's like a time where there could have been flashbackception of
yeah,
like while he's captured by the Tusken Raiders, he's thinking about his time as a younger bounty hunter where he's like, treating not treating people with the respect that the Tuscans are treating him with. Like there's like an interesting there could have been some Just
Or
diving
like,
deeper into the memories.
and like you could have like built off of like Cad Bane's line of like, obviously Cad Bane's lying to like fire up Cobb Vanth against Boba, but like the whole like he's a scumless killer who worked for the Empire, which is hilarious because Cad Bane ends up working for the Empire. But it's like you could have dived into Boba's regrets of working for the Empire and working for Vader and kind of doing some shitty things, and like building off the line that like Boba says to Finnick in episode 4 of like, why don't you work with me and not get your hands dirty, basically doing something that you didn't have to. And like
I am surprised with
showing Boba going too far.
When we got Tales of the Underworld last year, that moment wasn't included in some shape or form. I know it's not necessarily directly connected to the story they want to tell with Cad,
Well,
but like it's just like
speaking of animation tying in that, but like not really getting weirdly satisfied, I find it weird that Book of Boba Fett didn't acknowledge Bad Batch, because I'm assuming Bad Batch was getting written at the same time this was getting filmed.
Yeah, by that point, so I mean it probably would have been filmed. I mean it was filmed in 2020, fall 2020. By that point, we already got the announcement that Bad Batch was getting a show. Season 1 came out the next May 2021.
So the script's already done by that point in time, at least.
By that point, they're probably well into season 2.
So it's like I don't need anything massive, but like when Boba and like Cad Bane are having their standoff in the opening, like the kind of not the opening, but like the like Cad Bane reintroduction with Boba, I just wish he just said something to Fennec Shand of like alluding to like, yeah, we fucking fought each other before, like kind of like.
I guess it goes back. And you're probably about to say this. It goes back to like Boba and Chrysanthem's interactions in other media as well. Which I mean, that's a comic. I think is where they've interacted in the past. So
well, it's
it goes back to those tiers of canon you mentioned earlier.
Right, because like I was rewatching the scene, and I felt that way like after Bad Batch season 1 when I rewatched the finale the second time, but like this is my third rewatch since the finale's come out. Like when Fennec's kind of talking Boba down from getting into like a duel right then and there, you could have had like a line basically Boba being like, "Oh, look how much you've grown, little lady," or something like that. Like something just like alluding, just like a little.
Like, just to connect some sort of connection that they know each other.
Right. And I feel like that was such a missed opportunity because I feel like my other big gripe with the show is I feel like Fennec doesn't get enough to do in the show outside of just kind of being a mentor to Boba. Like all she does in this finale is just snipe people and assassinate people and then talk Boba off a cliff. When I feel like Fennec Shand should have been really protagonist B of the show. It should have been like an A and B type of situation where both of them are kind of co-leads. Because it's like you don't bring in Ming Na Wen just to do that. Yeah. And I feel like kind of like going back to like again, I really like Book of Boba Fett and I'm a firm defender of the show, but it's like you can tell when Jon Favreau started to get bored of the concept. And I think at that point, I think as a writer, he should have just passed it off to another person.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, I've said it before about like an idea of doing a Kira show. It's like how can you do like a Star Wars crime drama and get bored? Like I think there's so many elements to like lean into the genre of a crime drama in Star Wars, and especially doing it from the lens of Boba Fett, who's trying to escape his past and is kind of going through his redemption arc as a Tusken. Like there is definitely a story you can tell there of like kind of like the. Like I always think of like, I don't know if you watch it on Netflix, but like Ozark with like the way that like how like Jason Bateman's character is like constantly trying to escape the deal he made with the cartel. Kind of that type of story with Boba kind of trying to escape his past with the Pike Syndicate and the Empire. And like how those elements just keep coming back and Boba has to constantly be making these handshake deals until Boba's like, I'm fucking done with this shit. And like the kind of the fallout that comes from that. And I feel like that would have been interesting when you have Fennec. And I feel like Fennec Shand would have been an interesting character to like descend him further into the criminal underworld. And her kind of pushing him further and further and further into this redemption arc, but also kind of pushing him deeper into this conflict with the Hutts and the Pikes and the Imperials.
Well, I mean, I was gonna say not to go back to our Mando and Grogu conversation from earlier, just kind of theorizing stuff from there. But it's like now, presumably the Hutts, at least the twins specifically, are working with the Imperial Remnant. Does that give the Hutts the confidence to try to go back to Tatooine and challenge Boba Fett for Jabba's throne? And I'm like, is that a season 2 premise right there?
I feel like that's an entire premise of
Mhm.
season 2, because like obviously I think my main pitch for season 2 is kind of out the window with the Cure comic trilogy of her kind of being done with
Yeah.
Crimson Dawn, but like I like the idea of like not just the Pikes but all these criminal syndicates just kind of rising up and just trying to take over Tatooine
Yeah.
and like taking it like
I mean,
one
like,
step further than just the Pikes.
Dave, uh, what's the new Disney CEO's name? Josh
Yeah.
Damaro, greenlit a season 2. Dave and John, you can be executive producers, but then you can just pull a skeleton crew and let those people do it. I mean, sure, you can help set up some stuff, be a story contributor, but let other people write the scripts and develop the overall story. Just
I honestly feel
seven,
like
eight, another 7 or 8 episode season, just to give people what they want with Boba Fett. Give him another story, maybe set up his inclusion, the rest of the era.
I've
I
said
think
it for
you'd
the
be
longest
satisfied.
time. I think I've said it since Ahsoka season 1, when like the gripes of like the 8 episode format was coming out, even though I think kind of following into Chase's argument, I think it's a really weird argument. I kind of disagree with some of it, but I feel like as a whole, my biggest gripe with the Mandoverse era is I think Filoni and Favreau work best as kind of outliners of storylines. I think they need to kind of maturely go, okay, we're going to write the outline of this, like the season outline. We're kind of a showrunner. We're going to write this outline of what we think the season's going to be, and then we pass it off to a team of writers to finish it and fill in like the in betweens. Like I feel like Ahsoka, not something because it's Ahsoka season 1 session, but like I feel like even this show as a whole, like you could feel like you could see the outline of 1 through 7,
Right.
and you could see how writers could fill in those gaps
Mhm.
and make interesting stuff from those
Well, I feel like it's
outlines.
benefited Dave and John with both the Mandos as the show itself and Ahsoka's, because I think that was their bread and butter. They were the ones that created it. They're the ones that interested it. Maybe the dialogue doesn't work out, but the overall story, you can tell they're into it. While with Boba Fett, it's like, okay, at least in John's case, it's like, okay, we need another show. This might have been, again, my theory might have been Mando season 3 originally, but we had to change some stuff because COVID and schedules change. So let's do a Book of Boba Fett show. 3 episodes in or 4 episodes in, I'm like, I'm losing my steam. Let's bring back Mando. Let's try to make this make sense. Like, yeah, you can tell like he wanted that connection there, and that connection probably rejuvenated his interest in writing the show, the latter half.
And I feel like, because like Chase is like, I wish they were here to talk about this, but like Chase is like defended, and I don't disagree with them, like the decision to include Din in the show. Like it makes sense from a casual fan perspective of like, oh, if we're having Boba Fett in a TV show, we got to have The Mandalorian.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people, when they think of
Gotta have
Boba
that
Fett,
connection.
they gotta have that connection, because like, well, we both know that like Boba Fett is not a Mandalorian. A lot of people in their minds still think Boba is a Mandalorian. So it's like, well, why wouldn't you have Din Djarin in the show? It's like kind of the argument. And I don't disagree with that. I feel like my problem with the Din side of the story comes into play is when we start taking away stuff from season 3. Like I feel like Grogu and Din reuniting in this finale is way too fucking early for these characters to come back together. I feel like that should have been in season 3.
Would
Ideally,
it have been too early if this was season 3? Like, instead of it being Book of Boba Fett, it was Mando season 3, colon Boba Fett story or whatever. Would you consider it too early?
I still think I would consider it too early, just because like it hasn't even been a year since
Yeah.
in real life that Din gave Grogu to Luke.
Mhm.
I wish we had, again, obviously I'm not trying to be like I wish, but like for me, season 3, I feel like it would have been better if, I guess it's hard to describe because I think episode 6, it's the highest rated episode, even though I still think episode 2 is my favorite. But if they took episode 6's kind of subplot and just kind of elongated it over a season, that would have been my ideal season 3. Where you have episode 1 still, like, you could still have season 3 episode 1 be the same, right? Like Din goes to Navarro, the pirates attack, and that kind of stuff.
There
But
are elements there that you can still
you
use.
can still include Din going to visit Luke's episode. You have Ahsoka show up, i.e., Ahsoka subplot for her show,
Mm.
and then Din gives her the armor and then leaves. But you save all the Grogu training montage stuff and you scatter it throughout the season.
Yeah.
And then you have like the penultimate episode be the decision of like, you can either have the lightsaber or you can go. And then in the finale, can you imagine like, I think it would be hilarious, but like R2 and the X-Wing flying into Mandalore.
Yeah.
And you have that that moment you have in this episode of like all hope is lost, like, oh fuck, we're gonna lose. But it's Grogu who comes and saves the day.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of Luke. Like it's like the direct mirror to the season 2 finale. Instead of Luke being the one that comes in and saves the day, it's Grogu is the one that comes in and saves the day. Mm-hmm. And you still get that iconic moment in season 3 with like the Force bubble and like Moff Gideon and fire. Like you get all of that, but it's just like I feel like that impact would be way stronger because you had to wait an entire 2 years of real life for these characters to get reunited.
Yeah.
I think that would have hit harder. And it's like, it's funny because it relates exactly to our Mando and Grogu discussion of we're waiting for Grogu to like finally grow up. And I feel like that would have been the perfect kind of vessel for that to happen. And I feel like Mando and Grogu is kind of realizing that a little bit and trying to like you said, like soft reboot and like set that up.
Right.
And again, like the other gripe that obviously the other elephant in the room with this whole like Grogu and Din reuniting in the show is if you're watching Mando season 1 and season 2 and you jump to season 3, you're like, how the fuck did these characters come back together? Because I remember watching the season 3 episode 1 recap as a joke being like, are they going to include anything from Book of Boba Fett? And when they didn't, I started laughing. I was like, what the fuck?
So it's funny you mentioned that because somebody brought that up on Star Wars Twitter just randomly because, you know, sometimes people just want to bring up random stuff just for engagement, just to have something to talk about. Let me see if I can find it. I won't post it. I won't actually like share the tweet because I don't want to like put them on blast or anything
Right.
like that. Where is it? Surely it was not that long ago. It's somewhere here. I didn't delete it.
I'm assuming it's something to like what the effect I just said.
Yeah, so they said the worst mistake Lucasfilm made was shoving so many important parts of the Mandalorian story into the Book of Boba Fett. If you didn't watch, you'd go into Mando season 3 with no context for why Grogu is back, and you missed Din training with the Darksaber and building the N1. You rebutted that statement by saying, my perception of all this was that the only people I ever saw have issue with this were the ones that watched Book of Boba Fett and were worried about those that didn't watch it. By the time Mando season 3 came out, it was a non-issue, and the worries that people had never came. Also, those final 3 episodes with Din had really good viewership in its first few days, which it did. It had the highest viewership out of the entire show. And I imagine those who heard about it, probably hard not to hear about it, and wanted to watch it, watched it. Let's be serious. Did it become an issue to general audiences when season 3 premiered like people thought it would? And I said, no, this isn't necessarily me defending the choice, but just pointing out what I actually saw.
Right. And I
by
feel
the time season 3 premiered, you did not see anybody actually complain that, oh, Grogu's back. What happened?
Right. And I feel like, because again, like the lens of criticism that I'm going into with this finale, like, again, I'm a big defender of the show, but I'm also like a big kind of like, I'm able to like be very fair with this show and be like, all right, here's my issues with the show, but here's what I liked about the show as a whole. And I feel like while I'm kind of diving into like the whole like Din and Grogu being reunited way too early as an issue, you do bring up a good point of like, if you watch the season 2 finale and because I think everyone watched the end credit scene. I think the large part of the people that were watching seasons 1 and 2 watched this finale. And if you didn't watch it, you probably heard about Din being in the show.
And like, I was going to say, again, those episodes, specific, I mean, even the finale, but 5 and 6 are the highest viewed of that season of Book of Boba Fett. And those moments with Din, those moments with Luke, those moments with Grogu, they blew up on social media. So even if you didn't watch the show, you probably saw those scenes that probably encouraged you to watch the show.
Right. So
I think I saw like I don't remember what like the minute count was from Nielsen, but I think it was something like 1.8 million people watched the finale of Book of Boba Fett in like its first week, which is a good bit
I think it was like
for a
I think
spinoff.
I think it was the second highest viewed finale at that point in time, like right beneath Mando season 2.
Yeah, it was catching up to Mando season 2, which when I saw that article, I wasn't worried about people being confused because if that was just in the first week, I'd imagine another couple million probably watched it within a few months. By the time season 3 came out, it was a non-issue and the only people that were worried about it were the people that already knew about it. Why are we so concerned?
Mhm.
Why are we still bringing up that concern when the show has come out and we remember what happened and nobody complained about it other than the people that watched it already? It's been 5 years. Okay, maybe not 5 years, 4.5.
4.5. Because
Yeah, 4 and 1/4, something like that. It was 21. It was the end of 21.
right, but it's still
Beginning
like
of 22.
because like to me it's like I guess like I'm kind of going at the lens of because like I remember that being an issue with like Daredevil 1 season 1 2. I don't know if we're familiar with the Netflix shows, and then like Defenders kind of
Hmm.
affecting Matt's character, and then season 3 happens, and it's like I guess I'm just like old school the way I think about television, where it's like when you make dramatic changes to a character, like I wish it was just in the show itself. And
Yeah.
again,
In an alternate universe, this is just one big Star Wars show on Disney Plus titled The New Republic. It's like a 16 episode season. We've already got like 4 seasons. We'll get a movie in a couple years that ties up in a couple more seasons leading up to the movie that, we would have, which is what I kind of wish they would have done. Just have a elongated show and that,
or hell, like I know
you
people have
save the
like
spin-offs
made
for Andor
arguments
and all
of
that.
people have made arguments of like if the show was titled The Mandalorian colon the Book of Boba Fett.
I made that suggestion, and then I did the season 3 one, which would end up being season 4. I would call it The Mandalorian Book of Bo-Katan.
Or I would say like if we're doing Mando and Grogu, I've always said for the longest time, Rangers of the New Republic colon a Mandalorian story. I still think that would be a
Yeah.
better fucking title than The Mandalorian and Grogu, and I'll die on that hill. And like
Yeah,
instead
I
of
mean,
like instead of like
at this point, you could call Din and Grogu Rangers. Yeah, New Republic Rangers. You could.
because like it kind of like reminds me of like Rogue One, a Star Wars story, Solo, a Star Wars story. Why don't you just take the
You
Star
could've
Wars
done that.
part
That would've
out of
been
it and go
Just reuse that title.
a
It's probably
Mandalorian
somewhat
story?
connected to what you originally wanted that story to be.
And you can still call it Star Wars Rangers of the New Republic, and you still can get the Star Wars headline in there. You just change the subtitle.
Yeah, you could have done that. Yeah, that would have been interesting.
But like, I had criticisms of this finale, like shoved to the side. I think we addressed like all the Robert Rodriguez stuff. We talked about the Cad Bane stuff. We talked about the Finnick stuff. We talked about the Din and Grogu stuff. Getting into the stuff that I actually liked about this finale. Dude, this finale is just Robert Rodriguez like going into his toy box and just throwing it all on the
Yeah.
floor, and you can just see him being a kid filming this.
How can I do everything that I've done and stuff like Spy Kids and everything, like all the outrageous, mech stuff or whatever with stupid effects and what can I do with it? How can I do that in Star Wars?
Right, and it's like, I'm sorry, freaking Chrysanthemum like fighting Trundoshans, like how can you not like that? Like the moment with Freetown showing up and like Din and Boba are like overwhelmed, then you have that like the cavalry incoming moment. You got the Grogu reunion, even though like I have my issues with it, like it's hard not to get emotional during that, and having Grogu Sex Machina and like show up and like save Din once again. And then the fucking big one, obviously Boba with a goddamn Rancor. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't care if you people hated the show or like love the show. That was fucking badass.
Sometimes hype moments in horror farming is all you need for a scene. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's just good to have.
And it's like this finale, like I said, it's like it's just the epitome. Like I know people like are gonna look at me and go, "Well, all these criticisms you just said, all this, and you're just gonna throw it aside because this finale is fun." I'm like, yeah, it's a fucking fun finale.
If you can find enjoyment, even if there's like a lot of stuff you dislike, like I don't like. I mean, I dislike the Rise of Skywalker overall, but there's still stuff in there that I can enjoy and I can go back and watch it overall. And like the movie as a whole, and still I don't feel like my time is wasted.
Right. Like if I had to do like a finale tier list, like it would be at the bottom,
Yeah, it would be a weak one. It would be right there. Yeah.
but it's like I don't think that is a bad thing, to
No.
be 100% honest. Like,
Something's
and
got to be at the bottom.
something's got to be at the bottom, and it's like there are so many worse choices I could have picked.
Hmm.
But like again, I feel like, is there anything else I'm missing? I know obviously we could talk about fucking spin discourse at the time, which was one of the dumbest
Oh,
discourses I've seen in
yeah.
the Star Wars
I was
fandom.
thinking about that, but I said I was working on some other stuff as the background, so I missed that moment. I was waiting for it to happen, and I just never.
It
I
was when
wasn't
he
watching.
grabs Chrysanthemum and like after Chrysanthemum
Yeah.
gets thrown into the wall by the mech, and then he like releases Chrysanthemum, like spins and shoots. And I remember I made a video at the time of people making fun of the choreography, and I'm like, I think I used like Obi-Wan spitting. I think I used
Yeah,
like
there's a lot of that, and I know that's all. Those are also memed and made fun of, but I'm like, it's Star Wars. Sometimes it's just going to be goofy,
hey,
and it not always work out.
and I think that's honestly the best way to describe his finale. It's like perfect Star Wars camp in the best possible
Yeah,
way. And like people like will hate to admit it, but fucking Star Wars is cheesy and it's always been cheesy.
yeah. Andor is the exception, not the rule, to what Star Wars is. And I know some people would disagree with that, and some people would want more Star Wars to be, you know, at times, not necessarily always at times, serious, a serious tone, but more like take itself more seriously at times, and obviously writing and how it comes out on screen also influences that. But it's like sometimes it's fine if something is goofy and doesn't take itself seriously.
Right. And
Uh,
I
I the way I describe this era, this Mando era, I don't think I've mentioned it on the podcast, but like there's something warm and cozy about it for me. And it almost feels like if George Lucas decided in the late 80s, early 90s to make his sequel trilogy before the prequels, and this is like what he would make. Like a lot of this comes across as something that George would have made like in the late 80s, early 90s. Like this would have been his 7, 8, or 9 or whatever. It just feels like and it almost kind of feels like at times like some of like the ODU put on screen. And
right.
sometimes that gets goofy, sometimes that gets weird. It's not so serious. It doesn't make sense.
And I said this a lot when Andor season 1 was coming out. And I feel like what made Andor so good, and I think this is what makes Star Wars as a whole so good, is you could have a story like Andor, and you can have a story like Book of Boba Fett, where they're completely different in tones, and they both fucking work. Like
And
I'm
they yeah,
tired of this whole
yeah.
epitome of like, oh, every show from now on has to be Andor levels of dark. And I'm like, we don't need
Yeah.
Andor
And
levels of
mind you,
dark.
and not everybody when they say, we want more stuff to be like Andor, they don't necessarily always
Right.
mean in
They want
tone
like
or
production quality and like
yeah,
time spent and
the way they think of it is like they don't think the people who work on stuff like The Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett or anything like that don't treat it with the same care that like Tony Gilroy and those on Andor did, even though that's one, that's all subjective. Two, just admit it, you just didn't enjoy it as much. Like they care probably just as much, but that the way they output that is different than other people, and sometimes you're just not going to enjoy that.
right. And I'm also just tired of people pitting Tony Gilroy against Filoni and trying to create like this fake beef that's just not fucking there. And if you could read any statements between the two people, they've
Mhm.
always praised the hell out of each other. So it's like I just generally will never understand that discourse. And like I said, like
I'm perfectly fine with Andor being that like diamond in the rough.
yeah,
Great if more comes from it. Like if another, I mean, we've all kind of come to the conclusion as season 2 was airing that we're probably never going to get a show like this again. That wasn't necessarily because of like leadership or whatever. It's just everything that went into it. It's like was perfect. Like the stars aligned, and we're probably just it's never going to happen again.
right. And like kind of obviously this is not the wrap up to the rewatch, but like kind of it's funny that they were talking about this is when I remember when Mando and Grogu got first announced. My biggest fear of the discourse around the movie was going to be, oh, this isn't as good as Andor season 1 and season 2 because this is like the project that's like directly following it. And I still feel like what we're talking about now is going to bleed into the discourse when it comes out. Like, not like us, like content creators, but like the chuds online are going to be saying that. Which, I guess at this point, I just like, I'm not surprised by anything they say at this point. Like, they're very predictable.
Yeah.
But is there anything else that we could hit on the finale besides like what we've talked about?
I mean, there's a lot of like I didn't remember this one. This is the longest episode out of any of the Mando era. An hour and 2 minutes. That includes credits, but that's still, I think, technically the longest out of any episode of any of the Mando era shows. And a lot of it is very action heavy, which I completely forgot. Because even then, like when I realized we were like a few minutes in the action, I just kind of went through the timeline. I didn't like fast forward, but I just like kind of just like looked at the little preview. I was like, man, that's a lot of action. That's a lot of action. We're like 5 minutes into the episode and we're starting the action now, and it's like 40 minutes of action.
Right. It's just Boba just going straight MLG 360 no scoping people.
Yeah.
For 40 minutes.
I mean, with all that action, I mean, it was great, but like I think because of so much action, there's not a lot story wise to talk about, not outside of what we've already kind of discussed.
Yeah. But with that being done, let's kind of just move into kind of the outro here, because I feel like we kind of hit on pretty much all of the main topics. So, Ryan, where can the good people follow you on all the social media? Because obviously we're not going to have any trivia, because obviously it would be pointless. It's just with me.
So they can find me at RyanPW_ over on TikTok and Twitter. Like you said, no trivia this week. I did have a full trivia episode or a segment planned that was going to be an entire game, but because it was just us two, didn't work out. So we'll save that for next week. I think going forward, big trivia every other week, or at least that's the plan. And maybe in between, we'll do some like smaller trivia segments like we've done in the past with sounds and planets or anything new that I might think of.
And plus, I feel like the season 3 premiere is kind of the perfect episode to do that, because I don't think we're gonna have any major news next week, Star Wars wise.
Well, you say that. I mean,
knock on wood.
I was going to say I'm personally expecting another Maul trailer to hit.
Oh, like you're so right.
Any day now, because I don't know what the traditional schedule for animated trailers are.
Because we are like 3 weeks removed from the show.
The 7th, I think.
Yeah, 3 weeks removed.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. So next week is the 19th, so we'll do trivia then. Maybe Maul trivia on the 2nd before. Maybe I'll do that.
That would be the perfect lead in.
Maybe this gap in weeks will work out, because I was going to do like back-to-back quizzes if we so yeah, we'll do that. We'll do Maul trivia the week before, and we'll have that episode we'll have that premiere on YouTube like the day Maul comes out.
Right. But
I think cool.
Yeah, the good people could follow me.
Where they can find where can they find you?
Jumping the gun a little bit. You can follow me over at Hereth Productions on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads. And of course, you could find me over here at the Pod Ones Podcast. Again, I'm not going to really plug Luke and Char because they're not on this week. And if you want to follow them, they're in the doobly-doo down below.
I just realized you don't have your name on the camera.
No, Video Ninja's been weird the last couple weeks. Anytime I share the link and try to, like, from the control room, it just does not give you the same link. So I might as well just have to bookmark it on my page. But
all right.
With that being said, this is the way.
This is the way.
See y'all next week.